prerequisite programs. Prerequisite program for into food management systems, clearer guidelines for application of PRPs, and updated references. The other standard, SLNS 145, Food Safety Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point System, requirements is newly developed. It is intended to provide requirements for applying food handling organizations that is based on the principles of HACCP. It also provides principles of control needed safe food to consumer through a certifiable and consistent approach based on identification of CCPs. And I'm going to now hand you over to Ms. Eufalia Fulgent, who will take through the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ms. Julian and Ms. Samala Joseph for giving me this opportunity where I can present you the standards. As we said, we'll just be giving you a snippet of the standard. The onus will be left upon you to go and further read the standard and understand what each clause is about. So we're just going to go through it briefly. If you have any questions, comments, you're free to do that throughout the question and answer. If you think that you're not going to remember, you could always leave it in the chat. Okay, so we're going to go through it, go right into it because I know you're busy. And thank you for taking time from your busy schedule to be with us to go through this. Okay, we're going through the food hygiene and safety prerequisite programs, PRPs, and good hygiene practices, GHPS, and general principles. Okay, first we're going through the elements. Sorry, that's not what I want. Elements of the standard, and we have the forward, introduction, the scope, the normative references, terms and definitions, exclusions to this code of practice, documentation requirements, management requirements, non-operational requirements, operational requirements, and requirements for high-risk areas. We continue with that, verification, control of non-conformities, and we have Annex A, verification of effectiveness of cleaning and disinfection procedures. Annex B, product description guidelines. Annex C, incoming materials guidelines and the bibliography. And then we have some tables which shows example of a cleaning efficacy schedule for microbiological tests. The scope document specifies the requirements for the development, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of prerequisite programs, PRPs, for the management of food safety. This code of practice also provides minimum sanitary and good hygiene practices for food handling organizations. This document is applicable to all food handling activities of food and beverages for human consumption. Terms and definitions. Now, we focus on terms and definitions because it is important. Remember that each standard may have the terms and definitions specific to them, explained in the standard differently from other standards. So the terms and definitions is specifically for the specific standard, okay? So we have audit, cleaning in place CIP, competent, contamination, correction, corrective action, cross-contamination, disinfection, documented procedure, food handling organizations, FHO, food safety hazards, hazardous substances. Terms and definitions continues. High-risk area, non-conformity, prerequisite programs, processing aids, record, rework, verification, and waste. Exclusion to this code of practice. So we have exclusions. Food handling organizations are permitted to have exclusions and alternative measures implemented that are not in this code of practice. These shall be justified by documented evidence to ensure that food safety is not compromised. So basically what it is saying, you can have alternative measures. However, it must be justified and it must show that the food safety is not compromised. Any exclusions or alternative measures adopted should not affect the ability of the food handling organization to comply with the requirements of this code of practice. Documentation requirements covers that. We also cover control documents and records. Okay, records. Records shall be established and maintained to provide evidence of conformity to requirements and of the effective operation of the PRP. Records shall be clearly identified for traceability and easy access, suitably stored to prevent deterioration and damage, protected to prevent unauthorized access, easily retrievable, kept for a retention period of a minimum of 3 years, or in accordance with other requirements, including customer requirements, and suitably disposed of. Okay, the next area, management requirements, very important. Responsibilities and authorities, management representatives, resources, outsourced activities. These are some of the areas that will be covered underneath management requirements. General, non-operational requirements, general. When selecting and establishing a PRP, the establishment shall consider and use appropriate information, such as statutory and regulatory requirements, customer requirements, recognized guidelines, Codex Alimentarius Commission principles and codes of practices, and applicable national and international or regional standards. Construction, layout, and conditions of the establishment. Location, size, hygienic designs, and conditions are some of the areas that will be covered underneath construction. Roofs, overhead, structures and ceilings, walls, windows, and doors, separation of processes and facilities, floors and drainage. If you want details under these, you would have to read the standard. Walls, windows, and doors, external doors shall be so constructed as to prevent the entry of rainwater and pests into the food handling areas and shall be kept closed when not in use. Sanitation of processes and facilities. The separation shall be from low risk to high risk, okay? And the detail is in the standard. Floors and drainage, how this should be done. The coving of the corners of the building. Okay, how do you do lift cases, staircases, and mezzanine floors? All of these are in the standard. Illumination, how much light there should be and how your light fixtures should be. Ventilation and extraction, hand washing facilities, footwear washing facilities, storage facilities for food ingredients, storage facilities for packing and packaging materials, storage facilities for hazardous substances, and storage facilities for substances used for cleaning and disinfection. Storage facilities for equipment parts and spare parts, personal hygiene facilities and toilets, facilities for the washing and laundering of protective clothing, facilities for cleaning and disinfection, and waste facilities. Machinery and equipment for food handling. Maintenance of equipment, monitoring of machinery and equipment, operational support requirements, water, steam and ice, air quality and ventilation, compressed air and gases. Cleaning and disinfection, how this is supposed to be done will also be in the standard. Management and control of hazardous substances, extreme care shall be taken to avoid the contamination of food and of the environment during handling. So that's supposed to be taken into consideration. Management and control of pests. The establishment shall on a regular basis verify the effectiveness of the pest control. So that should be under the standard also. Waste management. Areas both inside and outside food premises should be kept clean and free of waste. So, and all the details underneath this will be detailed in the standard. Requirements for personnel. Personnel shall possess sufficient training, knowledge, and expertise to carry out assigned tasks. And this will be further detailed on the standard how you go ahead with that. Protective clothing. Personal hygiene and personal effects, notice boards, visitors and contractors, all of these will be covered. Medical conditions, a documented procedure shall be established for identification, monitoring, communication, and management of health conditions that can compromise food safety. And all the details underneath these headings will be in the standard. Operational requirements, processing aids, raw materials, and packaging material specifications will be in there. Final product specification, supplier approval and monitoring, purchasing, customer property, receiving and storage, all of these areas will be covered. Food handling, processing, and monitoring, food safety hazards, types of food hazards, measures to prevent hazards. Other operational requirements include traceability, emergency preparedness, packaging and labeling of the final product, shelf life and retention samples, dispatch, transportation, calibration, verification, and control of monitoring and measuring devices. Requirements for high-risk areas. High-risk areas require the highest levels of hygiene, food handling practices, design of facilities and equipment to prevent product contamination. Verification, testing, internal audits, control of non-conformities, general, control of non-conforming materials and or products. Rework. Rework shall be stored, handled, and used in such a way that product safety, quality, traceability, and regulatory compliance are maintained. Storage, identification, and traceability. Rework shall be protected from hazards, documented, and traceability records maintained. Rework usage, where rework is incorporated into a product as an in-process step, the acceptable quantity, type, and conditions of rework used shall be specified. Where rework activities involve removing a product from field or wrapped packages, controls shall be put in place to ensure the removal and segregation of packaging materials and to avoid contamination of the product with extraneous matter. Product recall and withdrawal. Documented procedure shall be established for the withdrawal or recall of products. Important. Corrective action shall be applied to all identified non-conformities. That will be covered underneath the standards. Okay. Okay, we're starting the food safety, hazard analysis, and critical control point system requirements. The elements of the standard: forward, the introduction, the scope, normative references, terms and definitions, management responsibility, document requirements, training, corrective action, internal audits, management review, prerequisite programs, preliminary steps, and application of the HACCP principle. Annex A, cross-references between HACCP principles of Codex and SLNS 145. Annex B, templates for the application of HACCP principles. Annex C, example of a decision tree used to identify HACCPs. Tables, cross-reference between Codex HACCP application steps and the application steps of SLNS 145. Documentation of hazards and controls, and documentation of critical control points, Terms and definitions, audit, competence, control measures, corrective action, critical control points, critical limits, decision tree, documented procedure, effectiveness, food handling establishment, food safety hazard, HACCP plan, and hazard identification. Continues. Hazard analysis and critical control point, monitor, non-conformity, prerequisite programs, PRPs, record, significant food safety hazard, validation, and verification. This document specifies the requirements for the development, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of a food safety system based on the principles of hazard analysis and critical control point, HACCP. Management responsibility. Top management shall provide evidence of its commitment to the development, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the food safety system. If there's no commitment from management, then there's no food safety program or HACCP. Document requirements. General, the organization shall establish and maintain documentation for effective development, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the food safety system. Control of documents, the organization shall ensure establishment of a documented procedure for the control of documents. Control of records, the organization shall ensure the establishment of a documented procedure for the control of records. Training. Training needs shall be identified and training provided for all personnel involved in the development, implementation, maintenance, and continual improvement of the food safety system. Other areas covered: corrective action, internal audits, management review. Prerequisite programs, which we just did a while ago. Prerequisite programs shall be established using the requirements set out in SLCP 1 or an equivalent recognized standard. Preliminary steps. The following preliminary steps shall be applied in preparation for applying the HACCP principles. A, establishment of the food safety team, describing the final product, basically product description, describing the intended use of the final product, construction and approval of the flow diagram, construction and approval of the floor plan. Preliminary steps 11 continued. Establishment of the food safety team, HACCP plan review, verification, description of the final product, description of the final product's intended use, construction and approval of the flow diagram, and construction and approval of the floor plan. Application of the HACCP, Principle 12, hazard identification, hazard assessment, determination of control measures, HACCP plan, determination of whether a production step is a CCP, establishment of a critical limit for each CCP, establishment of a monitoring system for each CCP. Establishment of corrective action plans. The food safety team shall establish corrective action plans for each CCP when monitoring of the critical limits indicates deviation from the limits. Validation. Validation activities shall include actions to confirm that the established critical limits for each CCP shall be effective and capable of achieving the intended control of the identified significant food safety hazards. Validation continues. When any element of a CCP are modified, revalidation shall be carried out. Records shall be kept of validation.